Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and hi, my boyfriend's ex, who I found out in the intervening time listens to this show.
Oh. Okay, I was like, whoa, where are we going with this one?
We had, my boyfriend's ex was visiting us just to hang out, and we were talking, the three of us, and the conversation turned to Star Wars because obviously, as I say, go to a party, turn me loose, 30 minutes later, you will find me talking about Star Wars with people because that's what I do. And I offhandedly mentioned something like, oh yeah, it's not like I have a podcast about this or something. He looks at me and goes, yeah, Goldsquadrongays. I listened to that show. Just gonna sit here and drink my coffee.
I love awkward stuff like that.
I love it. No, he was a cool dude though. But it's just funny it's interesting when you run into listeners of the show in random places that you did not expect. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, Bradley. That's happened to me a couple of times.
It's that California lifestyle. You just have all these people that you run into because you're such a celebrity over there.
Oh, truly. I am so well known in that nobody knows who I am. I prefer to keep it that way. All right. So before we don't have any news, but before we dive into revealing what the topic of our next 3 episodes is going to be about, I want to address some TikTok comments that we got. Our TikToks about the Star Destroyers being really fast and the Nick Sant, for our TikTok metrics, blew the fuck up.
Interesting.
So they got a lot of views, and the Nick Sant one especially, I'm not going to get into, got a lot of comments. But I do want to bring up 3 responses that we received to those 2 TikToks on the show. So if you remember in the Star Destroyer TikTok, Bradley, we asked, why weren't they firing the guns more?
Yes.
Like before Vader got onto the bridge. TikTok user Jacob, aka Player2, commented, on the spaceships in Star Wars, you can move power around to prioritize shields or guns or any number of things. The guns were probably on their default setting, and the commanders were waiting on a command from Vader before diverting power from things like shields.
That sounds like a Star Trek answer to me.
It is. No, it is true. It is. This person is correct. That
Right.
You see all sorts of times in Star Wars, it's like divert power from the shields to the guns, divert power to the rear deflector shield. So this person is theorizing that the reason that they weren't firing all their guns is twofold. They needed to divert power, and they were waiting for an order specifically from Vader to do so. Second comment, with regards to why the ships move so fast, but why they think we think they turn so slow. The user Maelstrom27 commented, larger ships have less agility because it takes more energy to move that much mass, but once they hit the right speed, they can sustain it. So starting, stopping, and turning are more difficult for large ships, but sustaining high speeds is easy because there's no friction in space. Someone else commented, it's space though? To which Maelstrom27 replied, even in space, it takes energy to move mass. Lack of friction means it will continue moving without using more energy. So they were saying the reason Star Destroyers are so fast, but we think they turn sluggishly, is because they do turn slowly, but once they're moving in a straight line, they can hit a very fast velocity. And I did check, and this does also track.
Well, if we ever go into space, we'll check this theory out and make sure it's accurate.
My final note is somebody pointed out, okay, so the old bearded guy on Endor's name is Nick Sant, right? Uh-huh. And he kind of looks like Santa Claus.
Right.
Somebody pointed out that Nick Sant is probably a reference to Saint Nick.
Star Wars names are so clever.
So fucking clever.
You never know.
So fucking clever. Those were some TikTok comments that I wanted to go over.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the engagement, people.
Yeah, keep it up. Keep commenting. We're at 1,200 followers.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
1,200 followers for my stupid little animations that I make.
One of these days, you're just going to get tired of doing it. We're just going to have to switch our format to something else because you're going to be like, guys, I can't do this anymore.
Honestly, so the first year, not year, 6 months or so that I did it, like the program was really finicky, so it would take a really long time. They've updated the program that I used to make it. Oh. So now I can just bang one of those things out in less than an hour.
Got it.
Okay. Like it's real precise. It used to be that it was really finicky about like when it, because I have to play it entirely by ear, but now I'm like, oh yep, just there we go. Let's just bang the whole thing out. I also care less.
Right.
About
we need to, you know what, we just need to get an intern to do it for you.
We do need an intern. We've been saying we need an intern.
We need an intern so badly.
Ugh. If anyone wants college credit, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we don't have enough work for an intern.
We'll sign a piece of paper that says you work 20 plus hours a week on this show, even though we probably don't have that much work, but we'll sign anything.
I do not perpetuate the getting free labor for college credit thing. I think unpaid internships are a scam.
Exactly. I lived it too much.
I did have an intern that worked for college credit on a show that I was managing. Yeah. And that person turned out to be invaluable, and I do think they should have gotten paid, but no one was paid for that show, including me, because the guy that ran it was very, very bad. Anyway, so Bradley, you and I struggled a great deal with what we wanted to do in between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor.
We had such a weird time frame to do stuff, so it's like it's really hard to figure out what you want to do because we have to split it up in such a way where it makes sense for you and I, so we're not, just doing all this extra work for bonus episodes, because bonus episodes are supposed to be fun and just shorter and kind of more like something to tease people over until we do kind of break down the big shows and we have a full kind of engagement time. And we didn't want to do something that was dumb. We didn't want to do something that was going to make you and I bored. Like, I know one of the things that we discussed was like maybe going back to vintage stuff and seeing stuff, but like when you really break it down, like I don't really want to sit there and watch the Ewok show and break down every episode.
I do want to eventually do that one day, but I feel like it has to be like a special occasion type thing. Because we had this weird thing where we always take a break after a show, which you noticed there wasn't any episode last week, and that's why. And we always take a break right before a show starts. And in particular, looking at our schedule, the way we have the schedule broken down right now is we are doing 12 episodes of Andor. So we're doing 13 weeks worth of Andor, possibly 14 Andor episodes. And then we're immediately turning around and jumping into Bad Batch and doing this intense like Bad Batch run. And it's not going to be viable for us to not take a break. So we had to take a break at some point later on. But we didn't have enough time. That only left us 4 to 5 weeks. And we do want to spend a week on the Lego Star Wars thing. We were like, what do we want to do that fits into like a 3 to 4 week time frame? And since Andor is coming out, we hit on the idea of, for the next 3 weeks, instead of covering a TV show, we are going to do a deep dive into the Rogue One movie. And rather than doing a massive 6-hour episode on it, we have broken it down into roughly what I consider Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 of the movie. So today we will be covering Act 1. Next week it'll be Act 2, and then the week after will be Act 3. Provided the Lego Star Wars thing doesn't come out in the middle. I don't know. I haven't checked the schedule at time of recording this. All right. Before we dive into it, Bradley, do you want to hear about how the movie ended up happening?
Yes, actually, because this is the first, we go back in history, this is the first movie to come out that was different than the main trilogy at the time. Yes. So it's definitely got a different history.
This is the first of the quote unquote a Star Wars stories. There was a series of proposed anthology films that when Disney first acquired Star Wars, it looked like they wanted to push out a movie every year. That was a mistake, and they shouldn't have done that, but they did. My tinfoil hat theory is somebody at Disney like an executive at Disney wanted Star Wars to be another MCU.
Yeah.
And that's not really the way that Star Wars works. But this was the first of those two films. It was this one and Solo. The others have either been scrapped or repurposed. The way this film came about is actually John Knoll. John Knoll is a visual effects supervisor at Lucasfilm, and he has been there a long time, like a long, long time. And he's been trying to get this idea off the ground for a while. And when Disney acquired Lucasfilm and some of the films that were in development, John Knoll went to Kathleen Kennedy and pitched Rogue One as an idea. And Kennedy loved it so much that they put it into production. So it was actually a guy at Lucasfilm pitched this movie to them. And they were like, absolutely, hell yes, let's do this. So that was how this film came to be. I guess we'll treat this like a normal episode, except I'm going to be the one doing the... It's going to be a lot of me talking. Get used to a lot of me talking. Bradley, before we dive into Act 1, let me set up what Act 1 is, what we're going to do. So our Act 1, for the purposes of this episode, is the beginning of the film to when they escape through hyperspace to get away from Jeddah after Saw Gerrera has died. That's where our Act 1 ends. If you're following along on the time codes, if you want to watch with us, it is the beginning to minute 50 minutes and 54 seconds. So that is how much we will be covering today, which is roughly the length of a really long TV episode.
It's like maybe we'll call it like the premiere episode. If you were to break it down to TV series, miniseries, this is the premiere.
This is the premiere. We're going to be covering the premiere episode today. So that is roughly what I consider Act 1 of the movie. Bradley, with regards to this portion of the movie, what is one thing you liked and one thing you did not?
Oh God, this is going to be kind of hard to do it like this. I guess I'll
it's kind of weird and experimental.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like fun. I'll probably do it like this. So I think one of the things I loved about this part is, and maybe this isn't really maybe it's more like an overall thing, but I really loved the introduction of the character of K2SO. I think this was the first time we got essentially a combination of R2D2 and C3PO, i.e. someone who can actually talk that we understand, and then also has the sarcastic kind of emotions that R2D2 does, which I think is genius because he's arguably one of the best droids in the series that they've come to like show us. And they did this again in Solo with L3.
37.
Yeah, very similar thing they did in that movie, because I think since that movie came after this, they saw the success with K2SO and they were like, oh, we need to do something very similar. Just, a sassy droid who has a lot of personality. And K2SO is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. And I honestly, without spoiling the end of this movie that came out.
Spoilers for Rogue One, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I do feel bad that he's not in anything after this, because I felt like they had such potential with that character, because I felt something about it. He just, every scene he's in, he just chews up the scene. He's so fucking good. Something I didn't like. Okay, so I didn't like this and I did like this at the same time. It's weird. So okay. I think it's unnecessary, but for me, I just like it just because I don't necessarily know the history of Star Wars stuff, and I think the dumbest of the dumb audience needs this, and I'm fine with them putting it in. And that was the title card sequences in the beginning of every scene in the beginning of this movie, where every planet is detailed.
Where they tell
every
you
planet.
What the planet is.
Yeah. On the one hand, I like it because, not everybody knows Star Wars, on the back of their hand. They need to be told oh, we're on this planet, on this planet. However, I feel like in this movie, the planet names and locations in the beginning, and they keep jumping back and forth, it's not necessarily important.
For a movie that's banking on you to be like, remember this thing I saw in the other movies?
Yeah.
It is a bit weird that they slap that. And there's one planet that they don't do that for. And they didn't do it for this particular planet very specifically. And that's in Act 2. Yeah. We will get to that planet.
Yeah, I just thought it was unnecessary. But I also I get it. like, it's like I have a weird like love-hate relationship with it, because I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, you don't need to know the planet names. It's not necessarily important. On the other hand, if you are the lowest common denominator watching this, you kind of do need to be handheld and be like, oh, they're on this planet. It's not the same as the next place we're going to. It's not the same as the next place. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of handholding, but I'm okay with it.
Well, they also tell you what the four main planets are. Well, the three main planets, and then presumably if you've seen A New Hope, you know what Yavin 4 is.
Right.
So yeah, it is. I guess they were trying to emulate like a war movie type thing. And they do this, a lot of this film, we'll get into it, is very much trying to be like a World War II war film. So maybe that's what they were going for.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling it was like if you ever see like maybe like a James Bond's movie or like a Mission Impossible or something like that, they'll always like, you'll have like the title card will come up and it'll be like almost like someone's typing in a computer, and it'll show you the location that you're going to. It's kind of like almost like we are the person who's overseeing the mission or something, and so we need to know the location purposes because we're back at headquarters helping the hero out. Kind of that feeling I'm getting from it.
Yeah, one thing I really liked, and it was a retroactive like, because I didn't care for it as much when I first saw the movie, but I'm literally coming from watching the Onderon arc of Clone Wars to this, is I really like the characterization of Saw Gerrera in this, and the way Forrest Whitaker plays Saw Gerrera as this paranoid like rebel who's been fighting for too long, and he's completely almost lost himself to it. I did not appreciate that when I saw the movie originally, but now I appreciate it a great deal more. One thing I didn't like, I'm not going to cover this a lot, but there is a fuckload of exposition in the first act of this movie that goes fucking nowhere. And it's like, it's clearly there to set up elements of the world. Like when Cassian like explains, what the Guardians of the Wills are, which kind of helps characterize Chirrut Baze a little bit, but also like they could have done it, I think, in a more succinct way, or maybe involve Chirrut in that a little bit, or the fact that their Guardians of the Wills could have come up again in Act 3, or like a lot of attention is paid to the necklace, which is a really great character moment, and Jen looks at it in Act 3 when we descend to the planet. But we also have a lot of explanation about what is a kyber crystal and why are they using kyber crystals. And it just felt to me like none of this is relevant to the second or third acts of the movie. It's just setting up like the Death Star is made out of kyber crystals. Okay.
Okay, yeah, fine.
I'm not sure we needed to spend time on this, but there's just a lot of exposition. I feel like there was stuff in here that was maybe in the third act that got cut with the reshoots.
Yeah.
That it was supposed to come back up, and then maybe it didn't. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of artifacting in this script, that they shot stuff and then they changed the third act dynamically, and some of the stuff they set up in Act 1 didn't come up again in Act 3.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure this is one of the only Star Wars movies where you still to this day cannot find like a script. Like you can find like whatever somebody created afterwards, like from the movie itself, from the final cut. But I don't think there's like a true Rogue One script flying around out there where it's like, here's version whatever, you know what I mean? Because I feel like just with all the reshoots that this movie underdid, that it's not out there. We're never gonna know.
This movie got extensively reshot. And well, I'll explain it now. Basically, the entire third act of this movie got reshot. That they filmed the movie, and then sources sort of vary. I have read accounts that Gareth Edwards went into a meeting with Kennedy, prepared to pitch that all of the characters should die, and Kennedy beat him to the punch and said that none of them are in the future movies. What if all of them died? I have also read accounts that say that Edwards went in and pitched, and Kennedy liked the idea so much. Reshoots, guys, are normal in Hollywood. It happens all the time.
Right.
It is a normal part of the process. They don't usually reshoot a movie's entire third act, but it's normal. So when you hear the screaming and braying about they reshot this movie, the production was a mess, it probably wasn't. It's just a normal part of the process. It's like having a 4-hour assembly cut. It's just a normal part of the process. Y'all are making it news. All right. Well, Bradley, let's go ahead and dive into the first experimental act. Now you did not really know what I was doing, so I'm gonna recap the sections. And Bradley's gonna take a little break before he has to recap all of Andor and all of the Bad Batch.
Oh my God.
How are you feeling there, Bradley?
Oh gosh, when is it gonna end? When will it all end?
According to our schedule, not until like May of next year.
Oh, good.
Because
Okay, I have a
if our
break then.
schedule holds, we're going from Andor to Bad Batch to Mando season 3.
Cool. So I'll probably be done by Mother's Day of next year. Sounds great.
We open approximately 6 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith on the planet Lamu. Galen Erso is hiding out with his wife Lyra and daughter Jen when they are found by director Orson Krennic. Krennic tries to get Galen to return to work on the Death Star project. Galen lies and says Lyra is dead, tries to hide Jen's existence, but Krennic isn't seeing it, especially when Lyra shows up and tries to shoot him. Krennic takes Galen away. Lyra is dead. Jen is on the run, but is rescued by Saw Gerrera. That was my off the cuff trying to summarize the events of this scene.
That's pretty good.
I'll actually tack on there in the present of just before A New Hope, Jen Erso wakes up in a prison cell. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, that's a pretty short scene, so you can throw that in.
I'll throw that at the end. I'm kind of making this up as I go along, like using the Wikipedia to be like, here are the scenes that are happening.
Well, yeah, it's broken up pretty well in there, so we could just talk about each section if you want, just like real quick.
I learned it from watching you, Bradley. I'm imitating you as best as I possibly can. You're the expert at this, not me. So before we dive into the content of this scene, Bradley, do you want to know about some of the major actors that are introduced?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
All right. We are not going to... Here's the thing about this movie, guys. There's a lot of fucking characters in this movie. There's so fucking many characters in this movie. I cannot possibly tell you about every actor that has a speaking line in this movie because it's a war movie. They have a fuckload of characters. And if you've seen something like Tora 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 or A Bridge Too Far or any remotely historically authentic war movie, they have a fuckload of characters. But let's learn about some of the characters in this film. Let's start with Galen Erso being played by Mads Mikkelsen. You've seen Mads Mikkelsen and stuff. I know him best as Dr. Hannibal Lecter in the Hannibal TV show, but he has also been in a lot. This dude has been in a lot of stuff. He's been in Casino Royale. He's been in a lot. He was in Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange.
I was waiting
movie.
for your Marvel pick.
Yeah, I don't think he's got a Disney trifecta.
Okay, I was gonna say, does he? Because I don't think he's been in a true Disney movie.
He's not been in a true Disney movie. He's a bit of a scary dude for that.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not an ugly man by any means. He's just a rough-looking, like rugged.
He's a rough-looking, rough-sounding dude.
Right. He's definitely like that. It's not great for kids' movies necessarily.
Phenomenal actor.
Right.
He is also the brother to Lars Mikkelsen, who is the voice of Thrawn on Rebels. So they are actually brothers. So he is our Galen Erso that is introduced. Lyra Erso, who is Jen Erso's mom, is played by Valine Kane. Apologies for the mispronunciation. She's been in quite a few things. She's been acting since 2009. Most of it is TV or small roles in films. She was in the Gangs of London TV show. She's in The Fall. She's in 13. She's mostly looks like done shorts and small films before she was in Rogue One. Director Orson Krennic, who is one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever, is being portrayed by one of my favorite actors ever, a gentleman named Ben Mendelsohn. And you might know Ben Mendelsohn for having part of the Disney trifecta. He
There
is
you go.
Talos in the MCU. He was in Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain Marvel, and he's in the upcoming Secret Invasion TV show. I was listening to our friends over at Darkside Divas. I was listening to their Marvel podcast, Marvelous Divas. They just covered Captain Marvel, and I'm just going to go ahead and shamelessly steal their information to regurgitate it here.
That's what we do here.
That's what we do. We steal from other better podcasts.
Of course.
Of course, that's our thing. Steph makes the point in that we in America think that Ben Mendelsohn is like a villain actor. But in Australia, where he's from, he's most known as a leading man. That's why he brings big dick leading man energy to everything he does, including Orson Krennic, because that's the kind of thing that he generally does over in Australia. It's only in America that we think of him as a villainous character, because he was a villain in Dark Knight Rises. He was a villain in Rogue One. He was a twist villain in Captain Marvel. He was set up as a villain, then spoilers for Captain Marvel, he turned out not to be. You know what else he is? Technically, he has a Disney trifecta.
Ooh, okay. What's the technical?
Because I was scrolling through his IMDb page just now, and I found he was in a TV show called The Wonderful World of Disney, which I'm not sure what it is or what's going on here.
What's going on?
It was technically produced by Walt Disney Television, which makes it technically a Disney thing.
Okay, well, it's still a technical.
I'm gonna give it to him on a technicality.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. We'll see. In my library of Disney trifecta, I don't know. He'll be in like the footnotes of a technical.
He gets to go in the technicality column.
There you go.
I don't think he was in a mainline Disney film. Unless Ready Player One was a mainline Disney film and I just wasn't aware of it.
I don't think so. Did Disney make that?
Let's find out.
Was it
I
Buena
have the
Vista?
IMDb.
Because you know how they have different things. They're not necessarily.
Who was it produced by? It was not.
Okay. So, I was gonna say I don't think it was. It was I know they had a lot of licenses in there, but I don't think it was them per se making it.
No, it was Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And then the final actor that I want to introduce here is Felicity Jones playing Jyn Erso. She has been in quite a few things. Let's scroll down. She was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Ooh, yes. I remember that because she was supposed to be the Black Cat character they were supposed to set up if there was ever a third movie.
She was in The Theory of Everything as Jane Hawking. I think she was in... Oh, she was in Doctor Who, an episode of Doctor Who. She was in The Unicorn and the Wasp, which is one of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who. I was looking to see, but it must be someone else who is in what I was thinking of. Oh, nope, here it is. And she was in Inferno, the adaptation of the Dan Brown book. She was in one of those movies. So she's been around.
Okay. Yeah, she seems like she's a very high, I don't like to say this, but highbrow actor. Like she does very,
yes,
she
does very
award-winning
British
films. Yeah, British stuff.
And so this is like a step outside of the typecast for her, which is very cool. She's also played Jyn Erso in the Forces of Destiny shorts. She returned to voice her for those. I lied. There is a fifth character that I want to talk about who is introduced in this. Let's just do a bunch of them off. Let's just talk about him now. Saw Gerrera, who we see very briefly, is played by Forrest Whitaker. You know who the fuck Forrest Whitaker is.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people do, or at least I would hope most people do.
You've fucking seen Forrest Whitaker before. You've seen him somewhere before. Couple of things about his portrayal of Saw. So he apparently, I don't have a primary source for this off the top of my head, but apparently what happened was they kind of needed an extremist character and they just decided to use Saw, and this was before Forrest Whitaker was cast. Saw in the Clone Wars looks different than Forrest Whitaker. He doesn't look like Forrest Whitaker.
Right.
But they went ahead and used the character anyway and just cast Forrest Whitaker because it's Forrest Whitaker. And if you look at now what they've sort of done in Rebels, he looks like a young Forrest Whitaker. And then in Bad Batch, when he shows up, he looks like kind of a cross between the two. So I predict we will see, by the time all is said and done, we'll see a transition of this character. Forrest Whitaker fucking loves playing Saw Gerrera. Fucking loves it. This dude is the Anthony Daniels of Saw Gerrera.
Nice.
If you hear Saw Gerrera, there is a good chance that you are hearing or seeing Forrest Whitaker. Only in the Bad Batch and Clone Wars is he not voiced by Forrest Whitaker that I could find. He reprises the role in Rebels. He reprises the role in Jedi Fallen Order. He's in something called Star Wars Go Rogue, which is a fan co-production.
Wow.
He's anytime they need Forrest Whitaker, I have heard he will be in Andor. Anytime they need Saw Gerrera, this guy's probably coming back to voice him.
I like that. So maybe if they do another Lego Star Wars thingy, any of these characters, maybe he'll come back and do that.
I highly doubt they will put the extremist terrorist in a Lego Star Wars.
I mean, you say that, but I've seen things they've done in other Lego productions that are questionable at best. Who knows?
Yeah, so that is a bunch of information about our actors. And we've introduced to most of the main characters with the exception of Cassian in this opening sequence.
Yeah, I would say so. I think you only got about three or four other true main characters, maybe two other ones that are like kind of side stuff that we can kind of talk about. But
so the very opening shot of there's no title crawl in this movie, which is very bizarre.
Oh, that's worth mentioning because
that's worth mentioning. There is no title crawl in this movie. It opens with a jump scare. And watching it in theaters after every single Star Wars thing ever, that is visual media, has some sort of opening title crawl.
I wanted to bring that up because, so I will say this is one of the only memories that I have of watching Star Wars in the theaters. I've seen all the Disney sequels in theaters, obviously, and when I was a kid, I may or may not have seen the prequels. I can't really remember that far back because I'm so young. But
I'm so young, he says, and flips his hair.
Fuck
you, Bradley.
This movie in particular, I explicitly remember seeing this movie in theaters because I never saw anything about this movie except for the teaser trailer. Nothing at all.
The one that they showed at Celebration that was just like the Death Star.
Yeah, it was like a real quick, I think it's only like a minute long teaser trailer for Rogue One. It was the only thing I saw of Rogue One. I never saw the main trailers. I never saw anything. I explicitly blocked myself from seeing anything about this movie online. I turned off Google alerts, everything. I mean, I was going into this movie completely blind. I had no idea what was going to happen in this movie. And I remember seeing it. And that's honestly, I'll tell you now, that's the way to see Star Wars movies, people. Because if you go in with zero knowledge and expectation, you will have the most fun time of your life watching these movies.
If you are familiar with the normal episodes that we do, Bradley is quite famous for, he does not do spoilers. He wants marketing material only. He doesn't want to know anything. He wants to go in completely blind. I'm fine with knowing all this stuff. He doesn't. So we enjoy Star Wars movies and TV shows in two very different ways. I like how the opening shot of the film, the rings come down and it looks like a Star Destroyer.
Honestly, I think it's every shot in this movie. Somebody out there knows what they're doing with all the cinematography in this movie, because it is every shot of space, of planets, of ships, everything is so good and so beautiful. Like, you're always like,
every shot in this movie is fucking gorgeous. Greg Fraser is the director of photography for this movie. And so shout out to Greg Fraser, because this is what he's doing. Beautiful.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Shout out to the visual effects team, the lighting team.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the director later on at the end of the third act. because we're using the same format. Right. Yeah, it's beautiful. Like there's multiple shots that I've specifically highlighted as being, I fucking love this shot. This movie contains some of my favorite shots in Star Wars until Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I honestly, I would say, yeah, I think I can think of minimum 2 to 3 that I'm like favorite shots in all of Star Wars are in this movie.
This movie is so fucking pretty.
Yeah.
Like I put on this movie all the time just to have on in the background because it's such a gorgeous movie.
Right.
While at the same time maintaining that kind of rundown sort of war movie, World War II look. We are on the planet of Lamu, is where Galen Erso is hiding out. It's a Nemoidian word meaning prosperity. It's popped up a couple of times in Star Wars since. Nothing is that interesting, but that is the planet. We do see blue milk briefly in the kitchen.
Gotta have. This is the first of many callbacks.
This is the first of many callbacks that will be in this movie, particularly to A New Hope. And some of them are very good and subtle, like the blue milk. Some of them we'll get to later in this act are not so subtle and not so good.
Yeah.
There is a book called Catalyst that is one of my favorite Star Wars books that I've read, that is specifically about the dynamic between Galen and Lyra and Orson Krennic, and how Krennic manipulated Galen Erso into doing the research for the Death Star in the first place. It is such a good book. Such a good book.
And, you know, I feel like this movie does kind of, and I know that that's why they do have books and they do have, you know, supplemental material, because you can't exposition everything in a movie. But
right.
I do feel like that is one of the kind of downfalls of this movie, is that connection between Galen and Krennic, is that previous knowledge of their relationship or whatever, you know what I mean? Like we know that they knew each other and there's some kind of relationship there, but I feel like we just needed more time to get that connection, because I think the only other time we see it is a flashback later on in Act 2, or is it in this act?
Well, I think that the core of the story is, you know, the relationship between Jen and Krennic, and how Krennic is kind of screwed over and continues to screw over her family. Right. I think the movie had everything we needed to understand that. Jen, who is a child during the events of Catalyst, does not understand what's happening in the book. There's a lot of supplemental material for this movie that goes back and explains a lot of, like, the whole thing with Saw and Jen is covered in Rebel Rising, which is a junior novel, is an excellent book. Is it a junior novel or is it a young adult novel? I think it's a junior novel that sort of explains, like, it can't be a junior novel because they do a violent, murderous terrorism in it. I need to double check. It's a good book also, and I will bring it up later.
Perfect for your 5th grade students if you're a teacher.
But if you were looking at the scene and you were like, I want more depth to the dynamic between particularly Lyra and Krennic sort of fighting over Galen's soul, Catalyst is your book.
Catalyst. Good to know.
Little Jen Erso walked so little Leia could run.
Yes, she really did.
We don't give little Jen Erso enough credit in this movie. Either little Jen Ersos. Let me see if I can find who's actually playing.
There's more than one?
There's 3 different actresses for Jen Erso in this movie.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
There's a very, very young Jen Erso for the flashback scene. And there's the one that's playing Jen Erso in the opening scene of the movie. The opening scene of the movie, she's being played by an actress named Bo Gadsden. Bo Gadsden has done, it looks like, mostly TV. She was most notably young Princess Margaret in The Crown, and she is walking so that little Leia could run. We do get our first appearance of Death Troopers in this sequence. I believe this is the first time Death Troopers are showing up. We're still not 100% sure what Death Troopers are. There was like rumors that they were reanimated corpses. There's rumors that they're like spec ops. We don't know what they are, but they're scary. Right. And mostly they talk in garbled, although there are instances in Rebels where they will speak normally.
Interesting.
which
Yeah,
is
it's almost like they have like coded like kind of
yeah,
radio,
it's like they're speaking in code or it's being scrambled. Every goddamn word out of Orson Krennic's mouth in this entire scene, and in fact, this entire movie is fucking gold. Back from the dead. It's a
Right.
miracle.
He also, my favorite part too is where he says, they have a child, find it, is
He
what he
doesn't know
says.
the gender. Catalyst actually explained this. He knows that the Ursos have a child, but he doesn't know the gender of the child. He doesn't
But
know
that doesn't
anything
make any
about the
sense
child.
because in the flashback, he's in the same room with Jin.
Oh
That's
shit.
so that's what I'm saying is
I thought he didn't know the
he's
gender, but he is.
no, he's explicitly ignoring the fact that he
That
knows.
motherfucker.
Yeah, it makes him even more evil. He's just like, because he doesn't see Jin as a person or a thing, right? Because it's not important to him. So he calls her an it.
Pause. This might be the first time on the show that we've ever had a thing Charles fucked up that Bradley corrected in the moment. We've been doing this show for a year and a half. This might be the first time that has ever happened.
You know, this is why I'm here. After all these years, all these months and time that we've done this, that now we can stop. We're done. That's
We're
it.
done. We're done. That's the end of the
We're done.
podcast.
The end
Bradley
of the
has
podcast.
corrected me about something on air. Every word out of Orson Krennic's mouth is gold. I love him so much. And Lyra Urso is a fucking badass. Like, she only shows up in this scene in the flashback, but she's just like, nah, we're just gonna shoot the dude.
And I do want to point out too, had Lyra not done this, the whole entire movie would not have happened. Had she just gone away with Jin, she would have been fine. They would have escaped with Saw at some point. Jin would have grown up with her mom. She would have been not as jaded about the Empire. And then she would have probably joined the rebels earlier on and been with her mom the whole time and worked with Saw, probably closer, and the partisans, and then been like, okay, now I'm like an underling of Saw. Like,
I can't see Lyra Urso sticking around Saw knowing the kind of stuff that Saw does. Having read Rebel Rising and knowing like the type of terrorism that Saul was engaged in at this point, and then also having seen Star Wars Rebels and knowing what Saw Gerrera is prepared to do, I would have radically reshaped Jin's life, but she doesn't. She decides to go shoot Krennic.
right.
Which, I respect that. Shouldn't have pulled the blaster on him and held it. Should have just shot him.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I understand for the sake of plot why she does this, but like in common sense world, if you know that this guy is the only thing stopping your husband from leaving or whatever, yeah, sure, the other death troopers that are around you are probably going to kill you too, but you could at least have the satisfaction of knowing that you killed that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I get it. Like she's trying to convince him to leave or trying to get him to back off first, but she should have just
Stop
shot him.
hesitating, characters. Just do the thing you want to do.
Just shoot him. This will not be the last time that Jen Erso will be alone in a bunker.
That was confusing. We'll talk about it a little bit later on when we get to that scene, but it's a confusing point of dialogue where Jin says something along the lines of, you left me in a bunker. And I was like, wait, is she talking about when she was 5 or when she was like 14? Like, you know what I mean? So it's very confusing.
Well, later dialogue specify he's like, I knew you could take care of yourself. He's like, I was 16.
Right. Yeah. But it was confusing at first because you're like, wait, are they talking about the scene in the beginning of the movie that we saw? Or are they talking about something completely different off screen?
No, they are talking about something completely different. But I just had that note. Fans of Rebel Rising, this is not the first time or the last time she will be alone in a bunker. And there's a big overarching theme in her character development of her being alone and people abandoning her, which is very sad. All right, she wakes up in a cell. Do you want to know about her cellmate, Ulan Musters?
Sure. Who's Ulan Musters? The most random character in this whole entire movie.
Ulan Musters. That's a she. That's a woman.
I kind of gathered that, but I mean, then again, it's
which
not
you
like
could guess from the fact they're in a cell together.
Right, but you could also feel like maybe the Empire's kind of racist / sexist, so they wouldn't care about aliens per se. You know what I mean? They wouldn't necessarily know.
True. Ulan Musters at this point is getting ready to kill Jyn Erso. and has openly expressed, we see this in the comic adaptation, we see this in Rebel Rising. I believe we see this in Rebel Rising. And I believe it's mentioned in the Rogue One novelization as well, but I'm not sure. That she is, when they go to their work shift in the next sequence that they're in, Ulan Musters is planning to kill Jin that day.
Weird.
Because Jin woke up Musters during the night, and Musters is like, yeah, damn, I'm going to kill you now.
Love that.
She is portrayed by Kinran Shaw, who previously portrayed the characters of Tito, Prue Sweetvant, and Infra Blue Zed Betty Coggins in The Force Awakens. And apparently was also in Return of the Jedi as an Ewok and a power droid.
I like how you said you were not going to talk about every single character that appears in this movie.
I'm not, but I wanted to talk about this one.
You proceed to talk about every single character in this movie.
Listen, I swear to God, it's not everyone. I think there's
Death Trooper number 2 is played by...
There's a fucking lot in this first episode, for which I apologize. But a lot of major characters get introduced in the first act. Well, I mean, let's speed on to the next section. On the Rings of Kafreni, Captain Cassian Andor, aka the Third Fulcrum, meets with a contact named Tivik, who reveals the existence of a planet killer to Cassian and says that they need to find a cargo pilot that defected to Saw. The pair are confronted by stormtroopers. Cassian shoots and kills Tivik so that he can make his escape. Let's go ahead and do the actors up top. Cassian Andor is being portrayed by Diego Luna. Diego Luna has been in Narcos. He has been in quite a few things, mostly minor roles up to this point, but most famously is from Narcos. He's been in a lot of Spanish language films because he is from Mexico and fluent in both Spanish and English. And he is reprising the role as Cassian Andor in a little show called Andor. I know it's a shock that Cassian Andor is going to be in this show.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would they put him in there?
Apparently, again, I don't have a primary source on this in front of me, but apparently it was Diego Luna's idea to keep his Mexican accent for the character of Cassian Andor. And this has received a lot of praise from people in Mexico, people who are from Mexico, people of Mexican descent, for keeping the accent to this character. So apparently that was his idea.
I like it.
Tivik is being played by a gentleman named Daniel Mays, who's a TV actor. Primarily, he was in Good Omens. He's been in a lot of TV shows, been in the Public Enemies TV show, Outcasts. I only bring him up because there's a non-zero chance we'll see him in Andor. They mention in this sequence that the Kyber crystals are being used to power the Death Star. So this goes as far back as the unfinished story reel Crystal Crisis on Utapau. So when season 6 of the Clone Wars was canceled midway through production, some episodes were done or close to done, and these were the ones that Netflix picked up. But some of them were in various stages of production, and these were released in something called, I think, the Clone Wars Legacy Project that was designed to get these episodes out in some form. Crystal Crisis was released as a story reel. So it's very rough, basically previs effects that they do. And the Crystal Crisis, which is the only one of these that is still canon, Bad Batch has been replaced by the Bad Batch episodes we saw in season 7. Crystal Crisis did establish that giant kyber crystals exist and could be used to power super weapons. The implication is they were used to power the Death Star. So this actually comes from Clone Wars. I fucking love this scene.
Well, okay, so I like this scene because 2 things. One, it has the most energy of original Star Wars to me. I feel like it has there's background characters, there's stuff going on, like it's very grungy, like in the the gutters of a city kind of feel. Everything about this scene feels really good. It also, I feel like this scene gives you a kind of look into what Andor will actually kind of look like.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, because I just feel like this is the vibe that the show will have to go for, because otherwise, it's very much Cassian being James Bond. Like, that's kind of what it is.
Cassian Andor is a very morally questionable character. And what the scene does really well is it sets that up from the beginning. Him shooting Tivik in the back is shocking when you first watch the movie, because these are the rebellion. These are supposed to be the good guys.
Right.
And one thing that's nice about this movie, and I'm hoping the Andor show will explore, is that sometimes the good guys have to get their hands dirty and do very bad things. And this was the point of contention between Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma that Rebels explored really, really well. That Mon Mothma believes that, no, we need to fight things the right way. And Saw's like, just fucking blow them up.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about Mon Mothma is that you can debate, one, whether or not she was in the right with her philosophy, but two, the fact that this stuff is still happening under her watch and that these are still the kind of people that she's recruited. I love this scene. The scene is so good.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next sequence. On the planet of Jeddah, Imperial pilot Bodhi Rook is taken captive by Saw Gerrera's partisan. He is brought before Benthic Two Tubes, who orders Bodhi taken to Saw Gerrera. Would you like to know about the planet of Jeddah, Bradley?
Nah, I don't think it's important to the story.
Nah, Jeddah's not that important.
No, they don't name drop it for any reason. I think it's unimportant to the story. So we can just skip all that history and what it means.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot about Jeddah.
Right.
It's certainly not an important holy site for the Jedi. It's certainly not mentioned multiple times in the High Republic. There is not something coming up. The conclusion of Phase 2 of the High Republic is definitely not called the Battle of Jeddah. Maz Kanata was not involved in this battle in some form. So really, Jeddah's not that important, and we can move on. Benthic Two Tubes. We're not going to get into who's like playing the character or anything like that, but I do want to talk about the character of Benthic Two Tubes, because Benthic Two Tubes is not the same guy from Rebels.
Right. That's like his brother.
That's his brother.
Got it.
Benthic Two Tubes shows up. He shows up in the comics, and that is the same guy from the Cloud Riders in Solo: A Star Wars Story.
That's pretty cool. I like that they connected.
So when you see the guy that looks like this guy in Solo, it is the same guy. He made the jump from the Cloud Riders to the Partisans, and actually, as it turns out, in I think the Solo novelization, they reveal that the coaxium goes to Saw Gerrera, is who Enfys Nest takes it to. His brother is a dude named Edrio Two Tubes. He is the dude that we see in Rebels, and he actually dies when Jeddah gets destroyed.
Gotcha.
So there's your fun facts about this character. I do also want to shout out Riz Ahmed, who plays Bodhi Rook, is another one of our main characters. Very, very prolific English actor. He's been in The Night Of. He's been in a bunch of different things, particularly British productions. Trying to find anything else I recognize. He is currently in pre-production for Hamlet as Hamlet. That'll be interesting.
That's just a small role.
I've never heard of Hamlet before. I wonder what that is.
I wonder if he's anybody important in that film.
But he is an important character in this movie.
Yes.
And we will get to that later on. On the planet of the labor planet of Wobani, Jyn Erso is freed from her captivity by the Rebel Alliance, who wants them to introduce them to Saw Gerrera. She is taken before Rebel High Command and is asked to facilitate that introduction, is initially resistant before agreeing to it. She and Cassian and K2SO board a U-Wing to take them to Jeddah, but General Draven tells Cassian that if he encounters Galen Erso, Cassian is to disregard his previous orders and kill Galen Erso. I just put that whole thing into one.
Wow, you're so good at this.
I'm so bad at this. I'm making it. It's not nearly as interesting as when you do it.
No, it's pretty good. I like this. Well, first of all,
you're gonna totally put that in me complimenting your.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna leave that in there for sure.
So Wobani, is a reference to Obi-Wan. It is an anagram of Obi-Wan. Let's dive into the actors that are in this sequence.
Jesus
we've
Christ.
met a bunch more important ones.
You know, we thought that there was a lot of exposition in the beginning, but now there's just like, it's just like they had to introduce so
all
many
of
characters
the
in this
fucking
movie.
actors.
Oh my God,
all of the fucking actors.
Well, let's just pound them out. Let's go.
There are certainly some actors that I would pound out in this movie. Oh my God. I am a terrible person. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actors that I want to bring up.
Jesus. Okay.
That are in this sequence.
All right. Give them to me.
So I'm going to bring them up in no particular order. The first one that I want to bring up is General Draven, who's our blonde-haired guy.
Right.
He is being played by a gentleman named Alistair Petrie, another British actor. I know him best from Sex Education. He's the headmaster in Sex Education. He was in The Terror. Shout out to our friend Erin, who's been on a few episodes. The Terror is one of her favorite TV miniseries. He was on that as Dr. Stanley. He is reprising the role in Andor. And he was, I'm so sorry to bring this up, he was in the TV show Sherlock in the episode The Sign of Three, the second episode. But he's been in a lot of things.
A lot of stuff, yeah.
This man's in way more stuff than I thought he was in.
Well, he is British, so you know you gotta have a lot of lots of roles.
He's a very, very like posh British man, which is I think why they picked him for this role.
Yeah. I will say though that one thing about this scene that does well is introducing all these characters. I feel like again sets up Andor really well. There's so many characters we can explore because they just introduce so many different things in this movie. And you're like, maybe I want to know more about, this character. Maybe I want to know more about that character.
Yeah, no, and one thing that's nice is some of them were fleshed out a little bit. Some of them were fleshed out a little bit in the various supplementary material. And Andor's nice because it's looking through the lens of Cassian Andor. We're gonna get a lot on all of these characters, especially the next one I'm going to mention, which is former Senator Mon Mothma, being played by Genevieve O'Reilly. Genevieve O'Reilly, you may know her from a very small indie film that she was in called Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Yeah, it's pretty small. I'm pretty sure you've never heard of it.
Yeah.
She played Mon Mothma in the deleted Birth of the Rebellion subplot, which I'm still bitter about forever.
But we need to talk about that for a second. Like, it's amazing how she played this character in a deleted scene, never to be seen again. That,
she's in one scene in the movie.
Yeah.
She makes it into one scene in the movie. It's wild. She talked about this on stage at Celebration when she talked about reprising her role in Andor. She said, I got to play this character as a younger character.
Right.
And now I get to play her as kind of an older character. And then she played another iteration of Mon Mothma because she is the voice of Mon Mothma in Star Wars Rebels.
I love that.
So she's one of those who just enjoys coming back to play this character. She's been in, she was in the film Tolkien. She's not done a lot that I recognize. Yeah, I
just chalk that up to word.
She's had a long career, but she's not really done anything that I recognize or anything that stands out to me.
Very European stuff that I don't follow a lot of that stuff. She's Irish,
lot of TV, a lot of British TV.
Right.
I do recognize our next actor, which is Jimmy Smits reprising his role as Bail Organa.
Oh my gosh! Yet again. Reprising his role as Bail Organa.
Yet again reprising Jimmy Smits. You might know from episodes 2 and 3. He played Bail Organa in Obi-Wan Kenobi. He played, he was on The West Wing. He was on How to Get Away with Murder. This guy is very prolific. Yendadana is our fourth of 5.
Oh my gosh.
Yendadana has like one line in the entire movie, but he is a recast. The character, it's the bearded guy who's standing next to Leia in A New Hope. And I want to shout out this particular casting because they fucking nailed this character.
You know what's funny is I thought he was in the movie. It was weird, or the original movie or whatever. Because
he's in the original movie.
No, I know he's in Rebels. I'm saying I thought he was in the OG movie. Like it made me think
the character of Yendadana.
No, I know. I meant the actor.
Oh no,
That's how good. That's how good the actor.
That's how
is.
good. Oh yeah,
Because
no, that's how good this is.
Somehow I suspended my disbelief that the actor is not either dead or older than dirt. So it's like,
well, he doesn't play him in Rebels.
got it.
This is his only appearance. This actor's name is Ian McHenry. McKinney. Ian McKay.
Another Irish
I'm
name.
so sorry,
Can't say.
Ian.
Yeah.
I should know how to do this. A good chunk of my genetics are Irish. I should know how to pronounce these names, but I don't, and I am so sorry.
That's okay.
He is most famous for being in Game of Thrones.
Right. That's what I was going to say. That's why I mostly recognize him from.
So I mostly think of him as Barristan Selmy, but they officially fucking nailed this.
And I was going to say one random thing that he's done that's relevant to us. He was in Queer as Folk.
Really? I did not know that. The original British one?
I think so, yeah. The original British one. He was in 2 episodes of that show. So
I did not know that. That is an excellent piece of information to know.
Yeah, it was back in 1999 and 2000. He was in 2 episodes. So,
and finally, Melshi is being played by an actor named Duncan Powell. Melshi shows up quite a few times in this movie, particularly in Act 3. Once again, he's done a lot of things. He was in an episode of Black Mirror, Law and Order UK. I had heard somewhere through the grapevine that most of the guys who are playing rebel soldiers in the background are actual former soldiers themselves, but I couldn't find a primary source.
I thought you were going to say they were former rebel soldiers in
they were former
Star Wars.
No, I've heard that they were former soldiers, but it seems that at least with Melshi in them, it's been Jost. I think we need a better word for that term because Joss Whedon is a terrible piece of shit. But it does seem to be that has been proven untrue.
Right.
That I was wrong about that. It may be that some of the background extras were, but I couldn't find any trivia that said that they were. But Melshi in particular is being played by a TVR.
I hate to do this, but do you want to bring up one more actor? Because he's technically introduced, so twice now.
Who do you want to bring up?
K2SO.
Yeah, if we're lumping the sequence,
might as well. I mean,
you know what?
At this point,
let's bring up K2SO. You're right, it's in my notes, it's just in a different section of my notes. But yes, okay. K2SO is being played by Alan Tudyk.
Mm-hmm.
He is, you've heard his voice before.
You've definitely heard his voice before.
Definitely heard his voice before. He was in Moana as the voice of the chicken. He was in Harley Quinn.
Yep.
Playing the Joker. If you name an animated thing, this guy has been in it.
And you know what? He does have a Disney trifecta because he does have multiple things. But I mean, he was in Raya and the Last Dragon. He was, like you said, he was in Moana. He's in the Modok TV series.
Now that's DC.
Modok is Marvel.
Modok is. Oh, you're right. MODOK is Marvel.
And technically, he was in the Big Hero 6 series, which is also technically Marvel and Disney combined. So he's in that. I mean, literally so many different things.
You've heard this guy's voice.
Oh, he was also in Aladdin. He was Iago in Aladdin. And then, gosh, which
wait, he was in the new Aladdin?
2019.
Yeah, the new Aladdin.
The new one. Sorry, not the original. Definitely a different person in the original. No, but yes, he was in that one.
Speaking of how Joss Whedon's a fucking piece of shit, he was also in Firefly.
Okay.
Which is
God.
How most of my generation was introduced to him.
Oh my God, he's been in so many things. I was like, is he in anything else Marvel? I'm like looking on his list just to double check, but it's like everything. Adventure Time, Star versus the Forces of Evil. I mean, Rick and Morty, you name it. He's done a fucking voice in that
and
thing.
He is confirmed he is not in the first season of Andor,
which is a fucking shame because why
I guess they don't want him to steal the show.
Then just put him in a few episodes. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have to be a main thing.
Oh, he will definitely be in season 2. Like,
if they don't put him in season 2, I'll fucking kill him.
I will riot. Okay, so we see a repurposed Clone Wars tank, the tank that showed up in Clone Wars and it showed up in Revenge of the Sith. I like how scuffed up the stormtroopers are in this sequence. I like how they just look like they're not getting a lot of maintenance. We do see our first appearance of the U-Wing, which is the new Rebel ship as it approaches Yavin 4. I want to talk about Jen's line here where she says, "I've never had the luxury of political opinions."
Yes, this is your favorite little bit.
Well, I actually, as far as the politics goes, it's the conversation with Saul later in this act. But I love this line where she's like sitting in a room full of people who are like fighting against the Empire, and it's be like, yeah, I've always been too poor and my life has been too shit for me to care, which is kind of how fascist governments rely on people. Like if you look at fascist authoritarian governments, they love when people are downtrodden. Because if you're downtrodden and you're scrambling to survive, you don't have time for political activism. You don't have time for resistance. You don't have time for any of this stuff. And that's what they like. So I love her basically saying, yeah, I'm too poor and my life has been too terrible for me to care about this stuff.
And I also want to point out too, in the trailer, the only trailer that I saw for this movie, which was the teaser trailer, this is a very famous part of the trailer. It's very clearly this scene. And she has a line in the trailer that's not in the movie where she says something along the lines of like, I rebel. And
they had clearly shot entirely different versions of this scene.
I just don't know. I want to know that. See, I need a fucking documentary on the making of this movie. Like, I need to know everything that was cut, everything that like it just doesn't make sense. Like, I know they've explained in like interviews. I think Gareth Edwards, the director, talked about the trailer and how they just shot a bunch of stuff for the trailer and then they released it and then they went back and made the movie. Basically,
what they did was they would have like off hours and off days. Where they were shooting stuff, but they either didn't have anything to shoot or they already had all the equipment set up or whatever. And so they would just kind of ad-lib stuff. Like they have the camera there and they're set up and they're sitting on set for an hour or two waiting on something. They'll be like, let's just shoot this. Or they would shout stuff specifically for the marketing, like the shot in the teaser of Jen and she's like standing in the room and the lights come on and she's in the TIE pilot uniform. That was shot with no intention of it being in the film.
I want
somebody just a glamour shot for the trailer.
Somebody, whoever's really talented out there, please go through the teaser trailer and just add in all that stuff into the movie. Just figure out a way to make it work.
People have gone through and tried to piece together what the third act was going to be based on, I think Star Wars Explained has done this. They've pieced together what the third act was going to be based on documentary footage, marketing footage, and stills that we have. I am even now, and I've seen this movie probably 12 or 13 times. I am still now figuring out stuff about what's going on in this movie.
Yeah.
So I always thought it was weird that like Bail Organa dramatically shows up and doesn't speak in this scene. And it's like there for the audience to be like, oh, it's Bail Organa. But when I was watching it this time with my notes in mind, I was like, the line preceding that is that they say, we want to find your father and bring him to the Senate for trial. Mon Mothma is on the run. She can't bring anyone to the Senate for trial.
Interesting.
So they need an actual senator to do this. Bail Organa is an actual senator in good standing. That's why he shows up. So I didn't realize that until I watched this. In the establishing shot as they're walking to the U-Wing, you can see the ghost on the left-hand side of the screen. There are many Rebels references in this. This is the first one. I noticed something that I never noticed before, which is that when Cassian and Draven are having their conversation outside the U-Wing, where Draven's like, ignore everything I said in that room, kill Galen Erso. When Cassian turns away, you can see that his arms were locked behind his back and they moved down when he was talking to Draven. He's doing military rest when he's receiving his orders from Draven. So he's doing like a military rest where his hands are behind his back. Like I think it's parade rest. I'm not sure. Someone who's more familiar with the military, don't correct me. I don't actually need to know the technicalities, but the military rest they do when their arms are like locked behind, their hands are locked behind their back and they're standing at attention. Cassian was doing that position when receiving his orders, which is just a minor detail to show like how much of a soldier for the rebellion he is. Heads up, folks. I'm gonna do the next few scenes a little bit out of order because they're kind of interspersed with each other. So I am gonna break them into 3 distinct sections. So bear in mind, if you're watching the movie along with us, we will discuss some of this stuff a little bit out of order. Somewhere in deep space, Definitely not the prison planet it was being constructed over in Legends, but whatever. Anyway, Death Star was a good book. Grand Moff Tarkin watches the construction of the Death Star. Orson Krennic arrives. Tarkin is concerned about the recent security breach on Jeddah, and Krennic vows to close the breach and prove that he is competent as a military director. Meanwhile, on Jeddah, Bodhi Rook is brought before the actual Saw Gerrera. In order to ascertain Bodhi's truthfulness, a paranoid Saw orders him into the maw of the Boar Gullet, the strangest fucking scene in this movie.
One of the most random things, one of the most random tentacle monsters we've ever seen in all of Star Wars.
What is we'll get to the Boar Gullet in a minute. But with regards to the Tarkin scene, the shot of the Star Destroyer, and it looks like it's on a bank of stars, and it kind of comes out into the light, and then like it pans up to reveal that it's actually the Death Star. One of the coolest shots.
So cool. And again, another slightly different shot that they used in the trailer, the teaser trailer, of that assemblage of the satellite dish part. It's just slightly different in the trailer, but it's very cool of the, like, you see the shadow and it slowly reveals that, oh, just kidding, it's the Death Star putting their satellite dish in. As
they should have. The whole, like,
again,
such
gorgeous
a good
fucking
shot.
Scene. Gorgeous fucking scene.
So they did actually make Tarkin. This was a complete shock.
I don't know how people felt in the theaters. I feel like I heard things or stories about people who don't necessarily know, about Star Wars enough, where they were like, that guy's still alive?
Yeah, it was. So when I first saw the movie, the recreation of Peter Cushing's face was uncanny valley to me. It completely took me out of it. When I went back and saw it again and I was expecting it, it made a little bit more sense to me. I was able to just kind of lean into it. He is not in any of the promotional material at all.
Right.
And I have a tinfoil hat theory about this. I'm not sure if it was confirmed. Originally, Vader was supposed to play a more significant role in this film.
Okay.
There are shots of Vader in the teaser trailers that do not appear in the film.
Right.
They were very clear in the teaser trailer that Vader is in this movie. And there's shots of him talking to Krennic and then having a conversation that don't appear in the film. My prediction is that they filmed both the Tarkin stuff and an alternate Vader subplot. They wanted to do Tarkin, but they weren't sure that it would work. So
I see.
They shot the Vader stuff just in case.
Gotcha. That would make sense. The Tarkin
stuff did ultimately work. The way they did this was Tarkin's being portrayed by a gentleman named Guy Henry. Guy Henry is another British stage and screen actor. He was in, once again, a lot of TV. A lot of these actors are TV actors, but he had like visual effects. Oh, he was Cassius in Rome, if you've seen Rome, which, Bradley, I'm sure you have not.
Never heard of it.
You would probably like it, actually. It was a HBO show that kind of got screwed over a little bit, but it was kind of a proto Game of Thrones.
Gotcha.
He was Jonathan Sewell in the John Adams TV miniseries, which is a miniseries of interest to no one but me. But they kind of like digitally did his face and replaced it with Peter Cushing. And they actually worked with Cushing's family to try to make sure that they were getting him right. So this was not done randomly. This was done with like the blessing of Cushing's family, who worked with them very hard to make sure that this portrayal was respectful and accurate to who Cushing was.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I vaguely remember either watching a vignette or some kind of behind the scenes thing where they found a mold of Peter Cushing's face, and that's how they were able to take the renderings of that and digitize them and even bother to do this.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, because I feel like I saw that somewhere. So people don't come for me if that's not true. I vaguely remember this. This is not like me being like, well, in this movie that he did, which was in they took a mold of his face and then they found it in a closet somewhere in LA and and they took it and they ran it. I just vaguely remember hearing this. I don't know if that's true or not. So don't come for me if that's not true. But I just know that I believe that's where they got just the model from, or that's where they started the reconstruction of the model from, was a casting of his face.
Yeah, and you can tell they put a lot of love and effort into this Tarkin. They did not put as much love and effort into Luke Skywalker in Mando season 2. But this was kind of the proto for that. And there was discussion when Carrie Fisher passed away of whether or not they were going to do this for her character, if they were going to kind of recreate it. And ultimately, they did not go that route, which was correct. But they did there was some discussion on whether or not they would do that, but they did not, fortunately.
That being said, I actually, when I saw this movie, I didn't actually think it was that bad. I didn't really have that uncanny valley thing. And I think that's only because, and I'll say that only for the first bit, this scene especially, because it's mostly just his reflection, and it's mostly he's in the dark.
I thought they were just going to do the reflection.
Which
I didn't
would have
think
been
he was
smarter.
going to turn around.
Right.
And then when it turned around, I was like, what? What is this?
I think actually they should have done more, just made it very visually interesting to do. I think I would have preferred them to do just like, oh, just a reflection. He never turns around. It's very like in the shadows. Like, is it really him? Is it really not him? You know what I mean? Like that way you wouldn't necessarily get that uncanny valley feeling, because it is a reflection. So it doesn't have to look 100% like accurate, or it doesn't have to look exactly like a human flesh moving in front of you. You know what I mean? But I think it helps that he's old, and he's not necessarily like, I don't want to say he's not human like, but he's very like skeleton looking anyway.
Peter Cushing already in A New Hope was fucking terrifying looking,
right? Very monster-esque.
And so according to, he was a famous horror actor, and according to Carrie Fisher, she struggled with her Peter Cushing scene because he was such a nice guy in real life. Like, he was just the most charming, kind gentleman you would ever meet, and then they would call action and he slips in the role of this despicable monster. Speaking of monsters, there's a lot of interesting contrast between Saw Gerrera and Darth Vader in the way that they chose to characterize Saw Gerrera, where he's got the mechanical bits, he's breathing through the oxygen thing that's kind of making the Vader noise, he's losing his humanity, which I think was a neat, interesting choice. The characterization of Saw is just, it's so good because a lot of it's visual and down to Forrest Whitaker's acting and how he plays, particularly the scene with Jyn. And then he tosses Bodhi Rook to the Brood Mother. That's a niche joke for a very small amount of people. If you've played Dragon Age Origins, you know what I'm talking about when I say the Brood Mother.
So what is Star Wars' obsession with tentacle monsters? Can we talk about this for like a hot second? I'll devote 2 minutes to this topic.
You'll devote 2 minutes.
Why do we love tentacle monsters in Star Wars?
Because aliens. Because weird aliens. I think it has to do with a fascination with the alien nature of deep sea shit, and there's a lot of weird tentacle shit down in the ocean. Okay. Also, the Dianoga from A New Hope was one of the earliest aliens we saw.
That's true. I guess it's on par with Star Wars' theme.
Now, did Bor Gullet need to be like stroking the side of Bodhi's face as it's about to? No.
Also, we see Bor Gullet again in Rebels, correct?
We do not. We never.
Where do we see? We never see him again. I swear we saw him in something else.
I don't think we ever see the Bor Gullet again.
Really?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
I have the Wikipedia page up.
I could have sworn he was in something else.
No, it is never mentioned again.
Really?
It is never mentioned again.
What a shame. What a damn shame. It has one of the best characters in all of Star Wars.
It has 6 appearances on Wikipedia. Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story novelization, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story audiobook, Star Wars Rogue One: A Junior Novel, Star Wars Rogue One: A Junior Novel audiobook, and Rogue One adaptation number 2. This is the only time Bor Gullet has been brought up.
I think this this monster, whatever this is, I think it would have benefited more if it was a sentient character.
It may be. We don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Nothing about the Bor Gullet.
They just didn't do enough with this. Like, if you're gonna give it to us, you gotta like give it something else. Like, they need to be able to talk to it, or they need to be able to control it. Because like, how do you control it? Like, how do you get the truth out of him if you don't? It's just a monster that just does whatever it wants. It knows if you're lying. They didn't really quite go into it. What the fuck is a Bor Gullet? It doesn't make any sense.
Explanations, please. That was slightly over a minute.
Okay,
actually,
good.
no. No, that was slightly over 2 minutes.
Okay,
It was
well, that's
like 2
all
minutes
that.
and
That's
10
all
seconds.
Boar Gullet gets. Sorry.
That's
no
our
more time.
Gullet gets. Moving on. After experiencing some flashback dreams, Jin and Cassian arrive on the planet of Jeddah. Cassian goes to meet a contact, and Jin meets Chirrut Imwe and Baze Malbus, 2 former Guardians of the Wills. So let's do our actors up front.
Let's do
our actors up front.
Let's 2 more actors.
Chirrut Imwe is being played by Donnie Yen, very prolific martial arts actor. If you've seen a martial arts movie, you have seen Donnie Yen before, particularly if you've seen Ip Man, which is a series of very famous martial arts films. He is Ip Man. Apparently, it was his idea to make the character blind.
Really?
Did not like this when I first saw the movie. However, upon watching the movie multiple times, I realized that he is not, in fact, using the Force to do all this cool stuff. He just has supernaturally good hearing due to being blind, and kind of has the Force a little. But apparently it was Donnie Yen's idea to make the character physically blind.
In my headcanon, I like to think that he is a Force-sensitive person who was not trained as a child and then still retains some ability as an adult, but not as to the extent of if he were trained, he would know how to use it. That's what I like to think.
Yeah, I think that's the implication, is that there are multiple Force sensing orders across the galaxy, and Guardians of the Wills may have been one of them. Baze Malbus is being played by Wen Jiang. He is a Chinese actor. Doesn't look like he's been in anything I particularly recognize, but he appears to have been in a lot of Chinese films. That is who that is.
So are we going to talk about the elephant in the room about these characters?
Do you mean the fact that they are totally fucking married and husbands?
The Boar Gullet in the room about these characters.
Yeah, that they're fucking married.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if that's just me projecting or if that's just, but when I saw this movie, I'm not even kidding. Like, I was like, oh, they're boyfriends. They're together. They care
more
about
than
each
boyfriends.
other.
They are like husbands. They fight like husbands.
Long-term husbands, right? Like the way they talk to each other, the way that they interact with each other. He's like, I mean, there's literally a line at one point in time where he's like, oh, I don't need, luck.
I don't need luck. I have you. That's specifically in my Act 2 notes.
Okay, cool. I'll bring it up later again. But I was just like, they are in love with each other. They love each other. They're the first gay couple in Star Wars. Like,
actually, Orca and Flix are the first gay couple in Star Wars.
In timeline release order.
No, Resistance came out. When did Resistance come out?
Resistance was not before this. There's no way.
Let's find out.
Yeah, please tell me. There's no way.
The sound of me frantically typing.
Because this was 2016 is when Rogue One came out.
Let's see. You are correct.
Okay, good.
This premiered. This was in 2016. Star Wars Resistance Season 1 premiered October 7th, 2018.
Now, to be fair, this is just an interpretation, people. This
is not an interpretation. This is canon. They are married.
But I definitely see them as definitely a couple. Like it's so obvious.
It reads that way. Like,
it just reads that way, and I don't even know if they did it on purpose, but they just definitely read that way.
There are times that you kind of have to stretch things a little bit to do a queer rating, but this is not one of those times.
Yeah, they're definitely queer. They're not, I mean, I don't even like to say queer coded because it just feels like they're just, without stating they're queer, they just are. Like, it's not even a queer code. Like, they just are.
We do get a shot of Coruscant in the flashbacks. I love the shot of Lyra and Orson Krennic standing next to each other when Galen goes to like comfort young Jen, and they're standing next to each other, and like they're not looking at each other. They already fucking hate each other.
Yeah, they're just like waiting for him to come back. They're just like, all
which
right,
you would know if you read the novel Catalyst, you would know that already Lyra and Orson Krennic fucking hate each other.
Now, are we going to read into that as? Now, I didn't read the books, so it's my headcanon. Can I be like, well, they hate each other because they're both in love with Galen?
You can certainly read it that way. Yes.
Is that what it is? The reason why Krennic hates her so much is because she's the reason why he's not with Galen herself.
Well, Krennic is like a terrible character like terrible as in he is a bad person in Catalyst. Right. It is a bit of a different characterization because he's very manipulative in Catalyst. He's very good at playing the game in Catalyst, and he's good at getting people to do what he wants. And we see in Rogue One that he is not that good at it by this point in the timeline. He is full of hot air. There's a lot of old temples on Jeddah. I just noticed that in a shot, that a lot of the cliff bluffs have been carved into temples. I'm sure we will see more of this in phase 2 of the High Republic, where we are going back to Jeddah. There was some discussion, I remember, when Rogue One came out, on whether the shot of the Star Destroyer that's directly over the city, so like it's in, like, it's not even a low orbit, it is hovering,
it's
like
literally above the city,
several miles above the city, whether or not that broke the lore, the previous lore, that Star Destroyers can't get that low into the atmosphere because they don't have the ability. Once they get in atmosphere,
they can't pull out.
They can't like hover like that. They will be pulled down toward the ground.
Oh, okay, because they're so heavy or whatever.
Because the engines are in the back.
Right. There's nothing. Well, in that case, it's so weird with Star Wars. Everything just hovers. Like, you just have to just go with it. Like, you're just.
And
like,
my answer to that is, who gives a shit? The shot looks cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it shows you the scale too of how big they are, because you're like, it's bigger than this fucking city.
It's the size of a city, and it's looming ominously over the city.
Right.
It's so interesting to me. I'm just speculating out loud here, but it's so interesting that we have something like this in Rogue One, that we never see a Star Destroyer get this low again. That we have something in here that seems to break the established rules, but no one ever brings that up when we're trashing on Disney Star Wars. I guess because, people like Rogue One so much that it just won't get you the hate clicks if you bag on this movie. So they mention pulling the Kyber crystals out, and this made me sad as a High Republic fan, because I do know from the High Republic that there was something called the Kyber mirrors, which are probably no longer there, which is unfortunate. So they fucking run into 2 characters on the street randomly that are the guys from A New Hope, Dr. Cornelius Evazan and Pondo Baba.
Okay.
This is so, like, this is the worst kind of fan service and the most blatant in the movie.
It is. And honestly, on the one hand, I'm fine with it in the sense that, yes, it is a fan service / Easter egg, whatever. My issue with this is not necessarily that it exists, and not even the fact that people complain about, like, well, how did they get off of Jeddah real fast and go over to A New Hope or whatever? Like that, I'll just believe that for the sake of believing it. That could be out. We don't know time in this movie. Like, we don't know how long in between, all this stuff is happening. So I'll give them that, like, whatever, they can escape. That's fine. My issue is with the costuming. Don't actually, it doesn't feel accurate to scale. And mostly, I believe it's Walrus Man. I think he's the one that I'm kind of having an issue with. I feel like in this movie, maybe don't get me wrong, maybe this is because it's too good compared to what they had back in the day. His head just seems too big for the costume, like, and that it doesn't look like when he's next to the doctor guy and next to Jin and stuff, he just seems like disproportionately large. And I don't know if that's just a costuming error, or if that's, or not error, but just like issue, like they just could not get the costume to fit like to a certain way where it's like breathable and like usable. They had to kind of slightly upscale it a little bit. That's just a nitpick. I don't even know if that's a real issue. Like, I need to see them shot side by side to kind of really compare. But
see, I'm just focused on my overwhelming hatred for Dr. Cornelius Evazan. So, bit of Gold Squadron Gays history. When we first started doing it, because I edit some of the episodes. If you ever listen to an episode that Bradley's not on, I have probably edited. In order to test this, I did a mock episode with Jordan, who is our artist. She makes the art that we use for the show. Not the graphic design, but she does the drawings of me and Bradley, and the little droid that we have on our TikToks. We recorded a mock episode where I explained to her, a person who doesn't know anything about Star Wars, the history of Dr. Cornelius Evazan. This dude is a piece of shit. This dude is a fucking piece of shit. This dude is one of the worst monsters in Star Wars. Like, he is awful. He is fucking hate this guy. Fucking hate him so much.
So I pulled it up. I'm rescinding my
You're
complaint.
rescinding it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's totally accurate and it's exactly the same size and scale. So, because I'm looking at like a behind the scenes photo or like just a picture of the actual movie, and like if you look at them side by side, you're like, oh, he's got a giant fucking head, and then the other guys,
they took great care with this movie to anything that shows up again in A New Hope perfectly replicated.
Yeah, well, okay, well, you know what? I apologize to the wardrobe department. I apologize to special effects. I apologize to the director and everyone who made this movie because it's perfectly accurate and it looks exactly like him. And they were correct in doing this, I guess, for the sheer fact that it's accurate. Well, I don't know if they were correct in doing it, but
Well, I'm sure that if any of them are listening to the show, they will appreciate. My final two notes for this sequence is there's like some monks there that kind of look like the Royal Guard, the Empire's Imperial Royal Guard. Mm-hmm. The implication that that's where he got the idea for the Royal Guard from. It's that crossed with the Senate Guard. They also mentioned that Chase and Beerett are Chase and Beerett.
So, what was that?
Baze and Cheerett. Oh my god.
Baze and Cheese It? What'd you say?
Base and Cheese It. Jesus.
Just say the husbands from now.
The husbands.
Just say the husbands.
The husbands are formerly guardians of the guardians of the wills, the protectors of the Kyber Temple. Mm-hmm. What guardians of the wills are is extremely complicated. It goes all the way back to the original drafts of Star Wars in the 70s. We don't have time to get into all that, but that's apparently what they are.
Nice. And you know what's funny is about this too, or these characters, I feel like these characters out of anybody else also have the most potential for expansion and knowing like their backstory and things that they did in their quote unquote past. If you were ever to do another thing with them, I'd want to see maybe possibly a younger, more romantic couple of them. And this is like them in their old gay stage. I want to see them in their young gay stage where they're actually like doing stuff together. Like
there is a book about them, Guardians of the Wills. It's a junior novel, and I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet. I'm so close to having read everything. I'm so close. I'm this close. But there's a few junior novels I haven't gotten to yet, and unfortunately, that is one of them. After being reunited, Cassian and Jen are caught up in a partisan ambush of an Imperial supply convoy. K2SO shows up. Chirrut Imwe then saves them from a large group of stormtroopers by doing badass martial arts shit. Baze then saves Chirrut from stormtroopers by using a fucking gun. They are captured by the partisans, and Jen says that she is the daughter of Galen Erso. Bradley, I have an interesting way of viewing this movie in regards to being a World War II film. Would you like to hear about some history?
Yes, give me some history lessons.
So I don't know if this was intentional. I've never confirmed it anywhere. But I do believe that all three of the main locations in this film, besides Yavin 4, Yavin 4 doesn't count, but the three main locations in this film, Jeddah, Edu, and Scarif, all invoke in some form one of the theaters of war in World War II. So we have three major ones. Okay. We have Europe, we have North Africa, and we have the South Pacific. These were the three main theaters of war during the Second World War. Jeddah is the North Africa. It is dry, it is sandy, it is, I think, meant to invoke the very old carved into the walls of mountains sort of. So this is meant to be the North Africa of our theaters of war that we visit. We will get to what the other two are supposed to be as we get. There's one per act, but this is the point where I wanted to point out, particularly in this fight in the city between the Imperials and the partisans, I think that is what this is supposed to be. This is our North Africa and our World War II theater of war. Can we talk about how K2SO is gay culture?
K2SO is, okay, if C3PO is one type of gay, K2SO is a completely separate type of gay.
If C3PO is a neurotic twink, K2SO is a gay man in his late 30s, early 40s, who is old enough to be world weary, but not old enough to have given up yet, and is dry and bitter about everything.
He likes to complain about everything, even though he can. You know what he reminds me of? I have a friend. I'm not going to say their name, but he reminds me of a friend that I know who is, he's around 50, but he's very good looking for his age. He takes care of himself very much. He's that kind of gay, right? So he spends a lot of money on his appearance and taking care of his body and stuff like that. But constantly complains about younger men not wanting to talk to him because of his age or whatever. That just gives me that K2SO vibe. I don't know why.
The constant bitching, the constant whining.
Yes. He's like, why don't all these people want to talk to me? Constant. And I'm like, if you would just stop complaining and like realize that people actually would like you. You know what I mean? It's just funny. It's just hilarious.
I just like, you're right. I should have stayed on the ship.
Exactly.
Speaking of K2SO, so apparently the bit where K2SO slaps Cassian, according to IMDb, which IMDb is not trustworthy, it looks like that was actually improvised by Diego Luna. So he improvised being slapped.
And they had to go in and add that in CGI.
And on set, Alan Tudyk ran with it and improvised and there's a fresh one if you mouth off again line, according to IMDb.
Oh, okay. Interesting. It's like, how do you improvise being slapped if like part of the costume isn't even there, when they're filming, like they have to add in some things and
apparently he improvised it and
somehow
his effects team and Alan Tudyk ran with it.
I love it.
The fight scene with Donnie Yen beating the shit out of the stormtroopers is the best fight scene in the movie.
I literally have notes. I have notes on what he says. I have notes on things that he says.
All right, run us through it, Bradley.
Okay, so my first thing is when he's approaching them for the first time. He's obviously got his cane and he's moving it side to side because he's blind. And then the stormtrooper's like, "Hey, stop that! Stop moving forward!" And he goes, "He's blind." He goes, "Yeah, but he's not deaf." One of the best lines in all of Star Wars. And then the second part of this bit, actually, I don't even know if this is after they get kidnapped. I don't know if is that part of this?
Yes. In fact, I have the line that you're about to say noted.
Okay, cool. So he goes, they're covering all their heads because as you do when you're kidnapping people, so they don't know where they're going. And he goes, "Are you kidding me? I'm blind." Arguably some of the best lines in the movie.
I like him jamming his like staff down into the guy's leg and being like, "Is your foot all right?"
He has some of the best lines, and it's all in this section. Like all these lines that he has, and I'm like, he ran with this character. It was so much stuff. It was great.
Fight choreography on this too, like they really said, we got Donnie Yen in this movie. We're gonna let him do one scene.
Yeah, let's have a fighting scene with Donnie Yen.
Let's have a fighting scene with Donnie Yen. Okay. I loved it. I love it. Mm-hmm. Love it so much. The rebels are brought to the partisan hideout, which is apparently called the Gut, where Jen is brought before Saw Gerrera. Saw shows her the message from Galen Erso, revealing that he has placed a flaw in the design of the Death Star and that a direct hit on the reactor will set off a chain reaction to destroy the station. Meanwhile, Orson Krennic and Tarkin fire the Death Star on the holy city of Jeddah, obliterating it off the map. The rebels escape from the destruction, although Saw Gerrera remains behind and dies in the explosion. The rest of the rebels jump aboard the U-Wing, fly out, and escape into hyperspace. End of Act 1. The hideout is super neat. They have an analog version of Dejarik. They have a Twi'lek dancer hologram. They also have a shitload of guns. I think the design of the partisan hideout is very cool.
Yeah, the Twi'lek dancer hologram reminded me of the Christmas special, and I was like thinking, why
are people reminding it? The holiday special doesn't fucking exist, Bradley. I deny its existence.
Okay, well, I was thinking of this weird relic from Star Wars history that doesn't exist. Where you got little child watching porn on his hologram, or I'm sorry, his the
dad
uncle,
watches porn.
Or dad, I'm sorry, the grandpa. The grandpa is watching. Grandpa is watching Stinky, or what's his name? Itchy's watching fucking porn on his HoloNet, and of a dancer. I don't think it's a Twi'lek dancer in the Christmas special, but it's definitely a dancer of some kind. But yeah, it reminded me of that because think about it. If there's all these dudes just like chilling, hanging around, what else? They're bored. What are they going to do? Oh, they're going to watch porn on the HoloNet. Why not?
Saw Gerrera is just out of his mind in this. And I love it. The portrayal that Forrest Whitaker does of this. You can see his mind fragmenting and then coming together briefly for moments of lucidity and then fragmenting again. And his conversation with Jen has such an interesting arc where we finally find out in this scene why she's been acting the way she has been in the whole act one, which is Saw Gerrera abandoned her in a bunker. And I think that getting closure for this and seeing her father again for the first time in probably 10 years is a major turning point in her art and where she goes, because now it's about, okay, Jen has a mission. The mission is rescue her father. Because if she can rescue her father, she can get her father back and stop the super weapon, the Death Star, which I do believe, if you are watching things in order, this may be the first reference we have to the name Death Star. I don't believe it's brought up in any of the supplemental material. If you're watching the visual media in chronological order. Now, I don't want to pull a Steph on Dark Side Divas and make that claim and then kick off an entire day's worth of Discord discussion on whether or not a term was used earlier.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think back to like Revenge of the Sith or something. If, like,
I do not think, if you are watching the visual media, the term Death Star has been used. I believe in Rebels, they refer to it as Project Stardust.
And then in Revenge of the Sith, when Dooku has or is it Revenge of the Sith or is it
It's Attack of the Clones. He just references the weapon.
The weapon, okay.
They have an ultimate weapon.
Because I remember visually seeing it. He has a little hollow thing of it, and he like goes, "Oh, that's great," and he takes it and he leaves. But
the interaction between Jen and Saw, when Saw says you can stand to see Imperial flags reign above the galaxy, and Jen says it's not a problem if you don't look up, haunts me.
I think of
this
that
haunts me
all the time. Doesn't affect you if you don't look.
Because again, this is what authoritarians want. They want you to keep your head down. This movie does such interesting things visually with the Death Star. Like, it's upside down.
Yeah.
In the shot we see it in. And like, yeah, obviously there's no up in space, but it's shown as upside down, and it gives you a sense of like it's pointing at the planet, not pointing up. So I really like that.
I noticed that too. I was like, why? I needed to understand that because maybe that's because like in space there's no up and down, right?
Right.
So do you think that that's just more of they orient the Death Star based on what's most convenient? Like
that's literally what I just said. They pointed at the planet. They don't point at it.
It's just they're so close that it's easier to just be upside down. They're pointing the laser
at the planet. That's why we always think, because if you view the Death Star from the planet, it's always going to show that super laser.
Right.
Tarkin says we need a statement, not a manifesto. That's because the smug motherfucker wants to make his own manifesto. He doesn't want Krennic stealing it. Mads Mikkelsen is probably giving the best fucking monologue in all of Star Wars. He is not even addressing anyone. He is talking to the camera. And he gives one of the most he is giving one of the most heartfelt, moving performances in the entire saga. Holy shit, his monologue. I guess now is as good time as any. This is where we're barreling towards our ending. But Galen Erso is based on a gentleman named Oppenheimer, who was the guy who built the atomic bomb and then felt really bad about building the atomic bomb. He is not the origin of, but he is the one who famously quoted, "I am become death, the destroyer of world," upon seeing the atomic bomb test. Galen Erso is based on that guy. So there is a lot of like the Death Star being the atomic bomb in this movie. Big instance of it later on in Act 3 that we will get. But I wanted to point that out here because he talks about building it and how he like hated it the whole time. Oppenheimer was a very complicated dude. Saw says that he's not going to run away anymore. Very poignant line. But so did you notice that the last thing Saw Gerrera sees before he dies is Jyn Erso escaping from the blast?
Yes, you see the U-Wing kind of like fly off.
He sees the U-Wing fly off and then he dies, which is, if you've read Rebel Rising and you know how much Saw cared about Jyn, is very sad. And then my final note, so K2's like, we haven't made the hyperspace calculations, and Cassian is like, I'll make them for you, and hyperspace out of there. Two things about this. One, that is incredibly fucking dangerous. to do.
Right, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, you don't know necessarily if you'll calculate into the middle of a star.
If the calculations are not done, yeah, you
Right.
could warp into the middle of a star. You could whack into another ship. You could do any number of things. You could create a giant galaxy-wide disaster that kills billions or trillions of people.
Where have we heard that or read that before?
I don't know.
A small novel that you're obsessed with.
Definitely haven't read that in a book. But then also, I remember there being a little bit of controversy too, because you should not be able to enter or exit light speed in a gravity well. Legends establish that you can't do that. If you're in a planet's gravity well, you can't make the necessary calculations to jump out. Han does this in Force Awakens, where he like light speeds so close to the planet that he's like flying over the trees.
Right.
When he comes out of hyperspace. And then Cassian does the opposite here. Again, who gives a shit? It serves the story.
It's like, guys, it doesn't matter. It's just a fucking fantasy movie. Like, who cares? Like, science doesn't mean anything in this. It's not Star Trek. It doesn't have to make sense.
Jesus Christ. I was in, please don't go look this up. Or you can. I don't really care. I was in a series of Star Trek fan films. I don't know anything about Star Trek and I don't care. It's fine. I've seen a few episodes of it. I joke that I've been in more Star Trek than I've seen, but I made the mistake of going to the comment section of those once. Oh boy. Star Trek fans are fucking pedantic as shit.
Yeah.
Like, you think we're bad? No. I've heard the new stuff is good.
Yeah.
But we won't ever talk about it on this show.
Yeah, no, we don't have that kind of one time. And two, I don't have the brain capacity to do both Star Wars and Star Trek, because I think my brain would rip in half if I would try to do that. And
we end Act 1 with the beautiful shot of the explosion from the city blasting up. There will be fucking consequences for the planet of Jedha. If you read the Star Wars 2015 mainline Star Wars run, there are consequences for this. Jedha never recovers from this. They effectively destroy the planet without destroying the planet with this test. Right. And it's worth noting too, like, every time they do this single reactor test or whatever, they're basically just setting off an atomic bomb on the planet every single time. Yes, in this movie, the Death Star is coded as the atomic bomb. Right. Like, in Act 2, the engineer uniforms that they are wearing are meant to invoke radiation suit. Every time we see the Death Star fire, it looks like an atomic blast. It looks like this massive, especially the one on Scarif. Galen Erso is meant to be Oppenheimer, or he is meant to invoke Oppenheimer. They do 2 bombing in this movie, and the atomic bomb was dropped twice in World War II. Gotcha. So this is very much a World War II inspired. All right. Well, Bradley, we are shooting along as far as time goes. Hopefully the others will be faster, since we aren't stopping for every actor. Do you have final thoughts? I mean, honestly, I think what I like about this one is it does end on this kind of like note of like, especially this beautiful, beautiful eclipse shot of the Death Star destroying the planet essentially. And that's one of the best shots in Star Wars is this. It's only for like a hot second. You see it eclipse, and then there's another shot later on where it shoots. Darkness literally falls on the planet and falls on the galaxy. Gorgeous shot. I like this. I think I like where this movie is going. You said it's like the first 50 minutes, you said? First 50 minutes. 50 minutes and 54 seconds. So, I mean, we're pretty much, we're well into this movie, and people at this point if you're in the theater and you're watching this for the first time, you're like, there's so many fun, cool things that you're getting from this. You're getting a little bit of old Star Wars. You're getting a little bit of new Star Wars, but this movie feels like a war movie. It feels like a very serious tone movie. Like, there are moments, tiny, tiny moments of comedy, but it's not like so in your face comedy that like it's childish and annoying. So that's what I love about Star Wars sometimes, is if they can find that balance. But this movie has definitely a darker tone so far than all of the other Star Wars at this point in release that you've watched in your entire watching of the movies. My final thought is that I think that the first act of this movie has some weird artifacting and furs of exposition and things, and it does front load a lot of it. I think this comes back to serve it really well in Act 3. There's a lot of small character beats that we just didn't address. And that's because as of time of recording this, we have literally been recording. Now, some of it's going to be cut out. We have been recording for as long as the movie is. just talking about the first act.
Right.
So like I didn't cover things like how Bodhi Rook doesn't really understand what's going on in the first little bits of it. He doesn't understand the danger he's in. He doesn't understand how to approach rebels. We glossed over the entire scene in the jail cell, which I'm specifically bringing up here because it is a crime. I didn't include it in the notes, where Chirrut tells Cassian, like, you know, we've been in worse cages, and Cassian's like, yeah, this is a first for me. And Chirrut points out every cage is physical. I sense you carry yours with you wherever you go. Like, we just don't have time to include these because this movie is jam-packed. This movie benefits from rewatching and rewatching and rewatching and rewatching. It's one of those movies that's beyond just you can watch it and rewatch it. You can keep rewatching it and still discover things about this movie, which is especially true in the first act here. As we move on, the latter two acts will benefit a lot from the clunky setup in the first act, which overall serves the movie very, very well. All right, Bradley. Well, if you want to go ahead and quickly run the socials, and then we will see everybody next week for part 2, or maybe the week after. I don't know when we're doing the Lego summer.
We'll do our best to keep it consistent, but I just started at a new show that I'm working on, so it's going to be taking a lot of my time, especially since it's a first season show.
We're pre-recording a lot of these episodes up front.
Right. So when they get released, don't know. We will fill in the gap. I promise. There will be things. There will be things happening and releases happening. They may not necessarily happen on the time you're expecting them, but they will happen. I promise.
I cannot explicitly promise at time of recording what next week will be, but we will get to something. It will be this or Lego's the summer vacation. I need to check and see when this is going to air versus.
Yeah, we got to see the dates. Yeah.
I can't explicitly promise what it will be, but we will see you guys next week. In the meantime, if you want to find us, Bradley, go ahead and run our socials.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.
So we'll do that. There's no more people being introduced.
There's no more people being introduced.
Okay,
we're just gonna go through it.
Okay, great. Let's do it.